And I basically told the judge, I'm not here to say I didn't do anything. I'm here to take responsibility for my actions. I am scared. I'm out of control and I need help. And the judge, I'll never forget this judge and the people in the court, like everybody could feel this conviction.
Welcome back to the Nichols and Dime Show. I'm your host, Chris Nichols. Today, our guest is Kevin Pheley. He is CEO and founder of localrealestateleads.net, Lazy Cow Staffing, and the Content Factory of San Diego, which is his new podcast studio downtown San Diego that he rents out. And that's actually where we recorded this podcast. So we had a really nice production, the nicest cameras I've ever used. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're in for a treat. He's also podcast host of his podcast called Thinking Bigger with Kevin Pheley. So in this conversation, we discuss Kevin's fascinating story of how he turned his life around from struggles with alcoholism and getting arrested to becoming a sober and successful entrepreneur. It's a very inspiring story, and we talk about, of course, how he learned his business skills in sales and marketing and management and delegation, and the various strategies for each of his different entities. And of course, we also touch on some of the struggles that he's been through and lessons he's learned and advice he has for fellow entrepreneurs out there. I really enjoyed this episode with Kevin and believe you will as well. The Nichols and Dime Show is brought to you by Legacy Capsule, which is a podcast as a service for a loved one in your family. All you have to do is have a prep call with the podcaster, share the details around what you're looking for out of this conversation and video podcast, and set it up to have it recorded. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you're interested in booking or learning more about a Legacy Capsule. Please enjoy this episode with Kevin Pheley. Kevin Pheley, what's up, man?
What's up, dude? How are you?
Good, dude. Thank you for being on the Nichols and Dime Show, and thanks for having me at your studio.
Dude, thanks for coming, and I really like we were talking about the photo. Really, really solid photo. Beats mine for sure.
I appreciate it, man. That was a fun project to get the podcast started, and nice to have it in the background and your studio, which we'll talk about. This is a new business of yours called the Content Factory.
Yep, contentfactorysandiego.com.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Shameless plug right off the bat.
Yep. That's what this is about, man. This is an entrepreneurship podcast, and you've got an awesome story around entrepreneurship from everything I've learned about you so far. You've got your own podcast, Thinking Bigger with Kevin Pheley.
Yeah.
And I think a good place to start would be your tagline. You have this as your bio, right? It's your mission.
Yeah.
To empower over 1 billion people to understand and reach their highest potential.
Yep.
Could you tell me about what that means to you?
Yeah, 1 billion people seems bold, right? Like, how the hell am I going to empower 1 billion people? And this actually came from a conversation with David Meltzer. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with David Meltzer?
No, remind me.
Okay. He's a sports agent, big in the media business. He was mentored by like Lee Steinbrenner, and he's a influencer, very, very tapped in, especially in like Southern California. Mm-hmm. But anyways, David Meltzer, for those of you that know him, thinks big, and I had him on my podcast when we first started, and we were talking after, and he was saying like, what's your mission? I'm like, oh man, I want to help like a lot of people. He's like, well, how many people? I don't know, like thousands, and he's like, why don't you think bigger, you know? Yeah. And he really broke it down where he's like, look, I want to empower over 1 billion people. And I was like, all right, sure, I want to do that too, but how are you going to do that? And he broke it down where he's like, well, look, if you and I have a conversation and that goes really well, you would think that that's you impacting one person, but it's not, because you go home and now you help somebody else with what we just talked about, right? So just in that little interaction, there's 3, 4, 5, 10 people that get impacted by that. But then when you're putting out video content and you can reach thousands of people at a time, and it may be a smaller impact every time you reach them, but through volume, if you can impact 10,000 people over a period of a year, how many people are they going to impact if you're doing positive stuff, if you're changing the way they think, the way they act, and stuff like that? So it really made it kind of seem like, holy crap, the 6 degrees of separation shows us how connected we all are in the world. And I think empowering over 1 billion people to reach their potential is actually easier. And once you start thinking from that level, possibilities open up that weren't there before.
Sure. Yeah, so it's really the idea of being able to distribute online, and you have access to so many more people. So it gives much more justification to have a vision or goal that big of reaching 1 billion people.
Yeah. So I mean, look, like if you were to tell Joe Rogan that he would be impacting over 1 billion people, I mean, there's not many people in the world that don't know that name.
Right.
So, and think about just the jiu-jitsu community alone with Joe Rogan, Jocko Willink, and maybe Eddie Bravo, right?
Right.
Those 3 guys have changed the game for jiu-jitsu because of a personal brand. You know what I mean? So yeah.
So true. And it's impacted guys like us, right? We're both podcasters. We both do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that guys like Jocko or Joe Rogan had influence on you getting into jiu-jitsu, right? I can say the same thing. It's amazing the kind of influence that people like this have been able to put out into the world who've become major podcaster players.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And it's cool watching just where media is going, right? Because it used to be CNN and Fox and NBC or whatever, but now it's Joe Rogan, it's Patrick Bet-David, it's Brad Lee, it's all these guys that have podcasts.
Right.
That's it. YouTube, and Instagram, TikTok, Reels, all of that stuff. So
I love this topic, man. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because that was a big announcement. Part of my announcement when I launched my show was the focus of media has changed so much. People are no longer interested in getting their news from mainstream media, right? People want to hear in-depth conversations, not this fast clickbait, just kind of nonsense, right? And we've learned a lot of it is not always accurate.
Right.
So the podcast space gives people an opportunity to speak for a couple hours at a time.
Yep.
And you really get to know that person. You really get to hear the full story instead of a 30-second excerpt on some news channel.
Yeah. And
I mean, it's been something I've been in love with for years, listening to podcasts, right? I think Tim Ferriss is probably one of the first ones I got into.
Yep.
And, that, of course, eventually drove me to think, hey, I can do this, and I think I can do a good job at it. And that's when I started my show. And I want to hear your journey to starting your podcast, but maybe a good segue together would be, let's just learn about you a little bit, your background growing up.
Sure.
So you've spent time growing up in Boston and Alaska, you said, right?
Yeah, Wisconsin, Montana, Oregon. I mean, we moved around a lot growing up. So I think that kind of made me, as a young kid, I had to learn how to develop relationships quickly with people, right? So, being a new kid in a place where all these kids grew up together, and having to do that consistently it's a challenge, especially when you're young. So when I was younger, I was forced to make friends quickly, try to be the funny kid, I was a bit of a troublemaker. And, but yeah, we moved around a lot. And, it's cool because you get a perspective on the world, right? You can start to see different cultures and different, the culture difference between Boston, Wisconsin, Montana, Oregon, and Alaska. I mean, you're just kind of riding that coastline is what Taylor Kavanaugh called it. But the north border, Right. But when you see the difference in cultures, it's crazy because, I've spent time all over the country too. And it's if you don't see that, you don't interact with people well when you're in other places, right? And so I think developing good empathy skills at a young age and things like that.
Okay, so when you moved back to Boston, you said you were at rock bottom.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, so I think when you're young, you're trying to find out who you are, right? And when you're in your early 20s, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of new stuff, but also at the same time, the clock's ticking. You're an adult and there's pressure from society, but also you just got to figure it out for yourself.
Right.
So for me, I think I was kind of losing that meaning. I was drinking a lot. I was hanging out with gang members. I was literally just a good person with good intentions in a bad situation and a bad habit, right? I was drinking a lot because there was nothing else to do where I lived. Medford, Oregon was and I worked in bars and, I knew everybody and I was kind of a partier. So, for me, I didn't go to college. I did. I went to the, college of partying and I got a PhD pretty quick, advanced. But, I partied a lot and, after a while, that's really unfulfilling. And, this girlfriend that I had at the time, I just was so focused on alcohol that I wasn't focused on her. And eventually she was like, all right, dude, fucking I'm out. You're a loser, And I remember that feeling, of when she broke up with me, this just hollow, empty, miserable feeling that nothing could, fill. And the breakup needed to happen. But I'm like, fuck, now what? You know, I had this relationship kind of giving me some kind of meaning, but now I got nothing. My friends aren't even really my friends. You know, I'm making bad decisions. I'm living this risky life. And actually I found out that my neighbor in the apartment next to me, these guys were tweakers. And they had a bet on when I would die of an alcohol related incident.
No way.
Yeah. So when I found that out, I just remember being like, you know, looking at these guys, like these guys are tweakers, you know, they're like a stabbing happened at their house once, you know, just like these people are looking down on me. That's crazy. And here I am thinking I'm just this fun, wild, young kid because society kind of pressures us to be this extroverted, keg stand, kind of cool, you know, like that movie Old School.
Right.
That kind of vibe. And I, you know, I think I had a moment of realization where I'm like, I need to make a change or I am going to die. You know?
So that was a big trigger, having them experiencing the judgment from people like that.
Yeah, it was that. And I knew, you know, you've got this, you know, this feeling looming in the background. Like your heart and your soul knows.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just, I just looked at the formula. Like if I continue doing this, is it going to get better, worse, or stay the same? Probably worse. So I'm going to make a change. So I called my aunt. You know, I had no money. I had, you know, I was behind on rent. I had my electricity shut off. I had my hot water shut off in like December or January.
Really?
Yeah.
So it really got to that point.
I was taking cold showers and it was 9 degrees outside at the time, 15 degrees, something like that. I was taking cold showers and then getting out, and I had an extension cord running from, because it was in a, you know, multifamily real estate complex, apartment complex, and I had an extension cord running from outside into my house, and I had a little space heater that I would sit in my blanket with the blanket over the space heater on my couch, so it would warm my feet up and kind of warm me up.
Oh
and
my goodness.
And I would sit there and shake, but the thing had like a safety switch, so if it got too hot or something, it would shut off. So I would get nice and warm, and then the second it was nice and warm, it would shut off, and it wouldn't come on for like 5 or 10 minutes. So anyways, it's the rock bottom of rock bottom, right?
Yeah.
It was just, and luckily I was 20 years old. Some people don't figure this out ever, and if they do, they're like 55, and it's too late. So I moved back to Boston. I call my aunt, move back, and immediately my life changes, right? Not immediately in terms of I didn't stop drinking, but I changed my surroundings, and I wasn't around the people that I was around before. I started seeing different points of view. I had a mission, and I was searching for something, and I was gonna get it, right? And my family's very Boston, very working class. You get a job, you work there, you die. That's it, right? And it's a respectable thing, but if you want to do anything other than the normal struggling kind of lower middle class lifestyle, you need to do something different. So I told my uncle, I told my aunt, hey, I'm gonna go figure out a way to get into sales. And I think I told them 80 grand a year, 60 grand a year. And they laughed at me. And they want nothing but the best for me, but they were kind of like, didn't believe, just different paradigms.
Right.
But I knew, and I knew that I could do this. Ultimately worked in restaurants for a little bit, you know, still struggled with alcohol for sure. And then in Boston, you know, you go down to Faneuil Hall and some of these places, you know, you drink, you get drunk, you get out, and you fight. Like that's kind of like was like every weekend. And, you know, early 20s, being dumb. But I learned how to make money. I got a really good job, had some really solid mentors, and eventually ended up, you know, out here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so just back to the time in Oregon, did you have any big-term, long-term goals at that point, or were you just kind of going day by day?
I don't think I did. I think that it was day by day, and
You were just trying to have fun at life.
yeah, I think I was trying to cover up like an emptiness, and I didn't even know that. You know, when you're young, there's so much, especially like in today's age when people are only putting, you know, social media was still, you know, like Snapchat was coming around, but like people now completely fake their life for the most part. And if you're seeing stuff that's real, it's the highlight reel.
Right.
It's not like people aren't posting their losses. And I think that that's changing a little bit. Transparency's coming through. But, you know, now these younger kids that are, you know, 20, 21 now, it's really hard because they think that everybody else is a millionaire and it's just not true, you know? So anyways, I didn't have any long-term goals. I didn't really have any ambition. But I knew that I was worth something more, So yeah.
Okay. So that self-belief was there. And then you went to Boston, you started to little by little change things in your life, starting off with your surroundings.
Yeah.
Right. You were in a better environment. You then got a good job. You were making money, but you were still drinking, fighting, doing these things. Could you tell me about, from that point, how did you then evolve to becoming sober? Was that before you came to California?
Yep. Yep. Actually, yeah. So just to step back one little bit to add some context, in between when I was with the girl that I was talking about, we had moved up to Portland together. So Portland, Oregon, which is a cool city. Back then, it was not what it is now, and we had a nice house with some friends, and that was a really cool time in my life. And I realized my life got better when we were up there, and ultimately we ended up moving back down, but. My life got better when I was there because there was opportunity there. It's just a bigger place with more resources.
Yeah.
And, it just made me realize like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I need to get somewhere where there's more opportunity. So that was kind of my reasoning before going back to Boston. Also, it was like a clean slate. I mean, obviously I have a foundation there, but for the most part, like I haven't spent more than just the summers there. Pretty much every summer I was there as a kid, but it's a clean slate.
Yeah.
So I moved out to Boston, worked in restaurants, did that whole thing, got a job at a company called Beacon Payments. And it's financial services, typical sales job, And at the time, I thought I was
You're killing it.
I thought I was working at Goldman Sachs, bro. Like to me, this was like unreal. And, I showed up early in the morning, sat with the CEO in his office because it's a relatively small company. CEO and vice president, the two owners, are there every day. So I got to kind of get mentored by them, and I would annoy the shit out of them. I just, kind of just budge into their office. Hey, can I, sit down and just watch you for a little bit? And they saw how bad I wanted it. And I think they saw potential in me that I didn't see. And they mentored me like no other, man. Like everything in my businesses that I practice now, most of it comes from what I learned from them.
Wow.
So yeah, but
it's amazing how impactful that first sales job can be for the rest of our careers, no matter what we do.
Yeah. And I had been in retail sales before. I sold cell phone cases at a kiosk in a mall.
Oh, wow.
So I had like a lot of objection handling and I was actually really good at sales, but I didn't have anything that I could sell that I could make money with.
I see.
So this is my first time that I saw like real money. I saw these guys were driving brand new Range Rovers. They had supercars. They had multiple houses. And in Boston, real estate, it's not cheap. And it wasn't then. And so I just saw what they were doing. And now I'm like learning a little bit, right? Because when you want something, you have to kind of like go through the darkness for a while and just feel it out and put pieces together. And it's kind of like a puzzle. You get one piece at a time and eventually you start to kind of see the bigger picture and it makes it way easier. So watching these guys and realizing that, my opinion on money was wrong. My perspective on it was wrong. I thought that you were either born rich or poor and you couldn't change that. And I realized that Jerry Kadish, the guy that owned the company, the founder, he was born to a single mother, food stamps growing up. His father died in a plane crash when he was young. Like, this guy literally grew up in a tough spot and now he's a multi-millionaire, and I just realized like, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. And so yeah.
And did he become a mentor to you?
Still is. I talk to him every couple of weeks,
Amazing.
And yeah, so him and my old man, I mean, I keep in contact with people. I don't burn bridges. I don't have enemies. I try to do right by people and stay in touch. And, I would not be here without them. And I try to make them, I probably bug them with it, but I'll send them probably 2 times a year a text like, hey, I just want to let you know how grateful I am because I mean, when I first...
Good for you for doing that.
Yeah, well, good for them for doing it for me. Like, it's crazy, and I just want to give back to other people with what they've taught me. But, it's funny, when I first went to Beacon Payments, I got hired and I was ecstatic just getting my foot in the door, right? At a, sales job, that was mostly commission.
Yeah.
But it was in the city, it was in the financial district. I had to wear a suit. I had to look nice. Like, it was my first real, felt like an adult. And people, when you wear a suit and you're riding on the subway, people look at you and when you're wearing a suit, it's a different energy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I like this. And so, when I first started there, I remember going in and I was going into the meeting every day, and Jerry's office was exposed. So he had like a glass window so he could see people when they're in, sales meetings. And he didn't talk to me much, but when he did, it was a lot. He came out to me one day and he's like, "Hey, Kevin, how many suits do you have?" And I was like, "Just one, sir." It was my first one that I bought with the last bit of money that I had at Joseph A. Bank for like $200. And he's like, "All right, how many ties do you have?" He's like, you only have one tie, huh? And I was like, "Yeah, I just had this one red tie. I had 2 white shirts, and I had been killing it." He saw that I was going in there and doing really well, but I'm wearing the same clothes every day. I'm washing, I'm not like dirty or anything, but he took me to Macy's and bought me probably like $400 worth of clothes. Nice socks, nice ties, nice, and he invested in me then, and it was just, I did everything I could to learn from them. I was there early when they were there, unlocking the doors before anybody else was there, trying to learn from them. And then in the afternoon meeting, when we'd come back in, I'm there until they leave. And to the point where one of the owners, Dave, the partner, he would take me home because it would get me out of the office. He'd, "Hey, I'm going to drive you home today." So
you were really aware of the opportunity that you had in front of you, and that changed your behavior, your level of commitment towards it. And clearly these mentors, the leader of this company, saw that in you, and that's why he invested in you.
Yeah. And again, like, I think he saw it in me before I saw it in myself, but I knew that I was worth something, but I didn't quite know. I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur.
You didn't know what that meant.
I didn't know what it meant for sure. Like, I just looked at what they did and saw it as like this just incredible feat, right? Like, I just want to do well here. And I was making 6 figures. My first year I made over 100,000. Actually, my first year I think I made like 85. My next year I made like 160. Okay. So I was making good money and blowing it. And, but I was having fun. I was, Dave Selenow, one of the owners of this company, always says, your 20s are for learning, your 30s are for earning. And that is like, so no matter how hard you try when you're in your 20s, you're mostly just going to learn and you're going to blow your money and, So anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about getting sober and then moving to California.
Yeah.
How did that come after this job?
So actually, I was still working there. And at this time, a couple years go by and I'm a sales manager. And I'm running trainings in the morning. I'm coming in and sales guys are under me and I've got people that I'm taking in the field and showing them how to sell. And, I went out to a Red Sox game on a Sunday night and, I had a morning meeting to run the next morning and I'm out, black out, wake up, jail.
Ooh.
In a jail cell.
It was a Friday night?
No, it was a Sunday.
Oh,
and I woke up Monday morning.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah. So I got arrested on a Sunday and woke up obviously the next morning.
And not at work.
In a jail cell with no recollection of what happened. That's a scary fucking place to be. Can we cuss on your show?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
It's a scary place to be. And because I woke up and the guards, I'm tapping on the window and I'm panicking, bro. Because I don't know. Did I crash my car? Did I kill somebody? Did I... is it just a drunk take kind of situation? It's not my first time in jail, but this is scary because the guards won't look at me. They're ignoring me. So I did something. And I fought with a bunch of cops, made a big scene coming into the jail, fought with a bunch of guards, took a bunch of people to get me into the cell. And that's pretty much it. So luckily it wasn't like I didn't kill anybody, didn't do anything too crazy, but it was the first time that I felt completely out of control. And I felt like I was not in control of my actions, and I'm a control freak. I like to be in control. It's why I'm an entrepreneur, I think,
Wow.
But that led me to, I had a realization that, again, follow the formula. This is not working. This isn't working. You keep drinking and you keep getting into worse problems, and leading up to this, I would wake up every day, not every day, because I wasn't like drinking every single day like that. But when I would go out and drink at the bars, it was on and popping, there was no off switch.
You're right.
The off switch was, I ran out of money or, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it was
Ain't no slowing down. You're going for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I would wake up every morning with a terrible hangover, trying to recollect my thoughts. What did I do last night? Why is my fucking jaw hurt? Did I get punched? Like what, it's just, where'd my money go? I panicking to check my bank account, grateful when I didn't spend all my money, but a lot of the times just, why did I pull out $200 in an ATM? What
did you do?
Yeah, and then rent's coming up. Oh man, like now I got to ask my boss for a loan and just all these things. It was just, I was uncomfortable and I was terribly, in the sober community, people say I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I was. I gave up, bro. And I literally begged to a God that I didn't even believe in while I was in this jail cell. And I said, I am done. I give up. Please just, if there's a God, just let this fucking work itself out. Because now I'm thinking, I was facing some time, like you fight with cops. It's not
they don't just let you back out.
Yeah. But I went to the judge in my arraignment and I basically told the judge, I'm not here to say I didn't do anything. I'm here to take responsibility for my actions. I am scared. I'm out of control and I need help. And the judge, I'll never forget this. This judge and the people in the court, like everybody could feel this conviction. And I'm a salesperson. I'm good at communicating, but it was genuine. It was like a cry for help, but they see people in there every day that say they're sorry and that ask for forgiveness. Everybody, when you're facing some kind of penalty is, but it was very, very obvious that I was ready to make a change. And I'm 23 years old at this time, wow. Yeah. So I'm 23 years old, which is good because again, a lot of people don't figure this out till later in life. But the judge heard something in my conviction. The DA first, or the prosecutor was first just trying to nail me. Like they did not want to let me out. They wanted to raise my bail. I couldn't, because I made too much money. They couldn't give me at first, when I first woke up in jail, I had a public defender come to my cell and was like asking me questions, asking me about my income, but I was making too much money for a public defender. And she was like, you know what? Like change this number that you gave me. Basically told me to lie in the paperwork so that I had a lawyer, because I wouldn't have had a lawyer going into my arraignment. So she was like, I got you. I'll take care of you, but you got to get your own lawyer after this, Wow. So she defended me. She helped me get out on bail. I went out. And the crazy thing is I had to go back into my cell and wait for somebody to bail me out. So this girl that I was seeing at the time is supposed to come down and bail me out. And I'm watching the time click down. And if she doesn't get there at a certain time, I have to go to the city jail and get processed. And then I'm there for like a day or two before I can bail out, right?
Wow.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God. Because they call it gladiator school. You show up, you're going to fight. Like it's a tough place. And so I really didn't want to go there.
At that new jail.
In Boston, yeah. So I'm in a courthouse jail, right? So they took me from whatever precinct I was in, took me to the courthouse, jail, took me into my arraignment, took me back down, and then, then they were gonna, if I didn't get bailed out by like 2 o'clock or whatever the time was, they're shipping me off to the city jail, and then I'm processed and in there for a day or two.
Wow.
But so bail made it. All of a sudden, like literally, I'm watching this little clock in this cell, and I'm just, miserably hungover, dehydrated. Talk about the lowest of the lows, dude. Yeah. Like I thought I hit rock bottom. Just because I was making money, doesn't mean that I wasn't at a lower rock bottom. But wow. And then they said, "Hey, you made bail." Oh, great.
She showed up.
She did not show up. She did. She showed up, but she was like an hour and a half away when I ended up calling her, getting the phone call in. I made 2 calls. I made 1 call to her. And then I made 1 call to my boss's office desk to leave him a message saying, hey, I fucked up. I know you're going to fire me. I'm sorry. Thank you for everything. I'm in jail. I'll let you know when I'm out.
Just that. You didn't ask for help.
Didn't ask for help. Didn't deserve it, right? And I walked out of jail, that when you get bailed out, they say, hey, come sign this paperwork. We give you your stuff. And then you walk out this door into the main area.
Right. And
my boss was standing there.
Wow.
He bailed me out.
Whoa.
He left the office and bailed me out. Yeah.
Wow, dude.
I know. It was just like, and I just was fucking like, yeah, dude, just getting I've never really told this story like this, but, yeah, dude, cause they saw the potential in me. And I remember it was my director of sales who bailed me out. And he was like, he's like, go home. He gave me like $20 for pizza because I was obviously needing food. Yeah, and fucking reeked like booze probably. Yeah. And he goes, Jerry wants to see you in his office 9 a.m. tomorrow. Bring the police report from whatever happened. So I'm like, all right. So, I go home, dreading the next day, but like happy to be out, but also like, fuck, what am I going to do? And I posted on Facebook. I think I'm going to stop drinking for good. I think it's time for me to stop drinking for good. And I see that every single year because that was the last day I drank was that night. You know, I was done, bro. There was nothing you literally, I'm telling you, dude, there's been nothing that I've been more firm about in my life. There's zero question about it. Zero question, dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude.
And so that moment was a crossroads. And the universe, God, whatever you perceive it as, I perceive it as God, but the doors opened up, bro. Everything just was like, all right, you're done. You know, it's like in jiu-jitsu, you know, some new white belt wants to fucking spaz around. You kind of hold him down there. Like, hey, you done? You chill? That's what I felt like. I felt like I was you know, God was like, hey, are you done fighting what you're really meant to do? Like, you have a bigger plan. Like, are you really going to waste your life drinking and fucking around and, you know, girls, booze, partying, adrenaline rushes, whatever, right? And yeah, so yeah.
Wow, dude. I mean, this is such a powerful story, and it helps everyone understand so much more the passion, the motivation, where you get all that from that you have, right? That's contributed to your journey ever since then.
Yeah.
And I mean, man, I can relate to a lot of what you said as far as having maybe some rough experiences with alcohol, and especially the part where you said you're a control freak.
Yeah.
I am too.
Yeah.
And when you have this feeling of you felt completely out of control, there's nothing worse.
Yeah.
You don't know what you did to fuck things up.
Yes.
Right. And how the hell are you going to get out of it? But it sounds like, I mean, I certainly believe, and it sounds like God really took care of you right there. Was it that experience that made you start believing in God?
Yes, for sure. And it took me time, right? Like, you know, because I grew up in a household that was, you know, my mother's Irish Catholic, typical Boston. My dad's atheist, right? So it's kind of a weird mix. And there was never anything pressured on me, like you have to believe this or this. But I definitely was like an atheist or agnostic. I never like completely shut it out, but I, you know, also like, because religion is compromised. Religion is corrupted and terrible. And that puts a bad look on God, or again, like whatever anybody wants to call it. Something is there. That thing is real. I can tell you that. I don't, you know, I can't tell you 1,000% what it is, but dude, I'm telling you, when you have an experience like that, it will transform your life.
Sure.
You know, and so that not only made me believe in God, but the cool thing is when you get sober, especially after, you know, living most of your adult life drinking alcohol and consistently like just being in that kind of daze, it's like taking off these glasses. You know, you ever look at a TV screen with polarized glasses on and you can't see it?
Right.
You know, or sometimes you look at like a car's, you know, windshield. It'll look different with the glasses on. Well, the second you take those off, all of a sudden you can kind of see what's really in front of you. And that's what I felt like.
Right.
You know, it's like I took a step back and I could see myself from the third person. And now I could it was almost like I was observing myself and actually like taking inventory of my actions and like doing the deep work. Because when you become sober, you now have to do the work of, you know, I was drinking to cover something up. You know, now I'm sober, but now I don't have that crutch. So now all these other problems are going to come up that I have to face. But it's got to be done sooner than later, you know, with anything, not just alcohol, you know, any vice.
Man, dude, no, this story is so powerful, and I'm glad we spent this time talking about this, and thank you for sharing it.
Yeah.
It helps me get to understand you so much more, and it's just powerful, man. Hitting rock bottom like that, you thought you hit rock bottom when you were in Oregon.
Yeah.
And then you thought things were going the right direction.
Yeah.
Like money got better, job got better, your surroundings maybe got better, but you still had this habit with partying and drinking, and it had a negative impact on you and your behavior, perhaps when you go too far with alcohol, right?
Right.
And then there you are ending up in jail.
Yeah.
Which is, wow, dude. But that story of you taking ownership and saying that you need help, that's powerful. So
yeah,
it says a lot to your character, and I respect that a lot.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
For sure. So after all this, dude, did this prompt you to move to California just to say, I need a new place, I need a fresh start?
Yeah, it was kind of like, again, like the same thing, the previous rock bottom. Hey, this is, there's nothing new here for me. It's like me spending more time here or somewhere else. What's going to give me more of a value, right? And again, like I think also it was kind of miserable outside, Boston. So this happened in July. So this was just a few months later, like coming into winter, right? So it's cold, it's miserable, it's Boston, it's dark. It's like Boston's an amazing place and I love it almost any time of the year. But, growing up in these cold places, I like craved this something different, something warm, something new. So I was like, well, I was actually playing Grand Theft Auto 5, which takes place in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing is in Grand Theft Auto, you can own a business, you can have an office, you can have all this stuff. And I would play this game and not even know that I was doing visualization. I would play this game and I would just visualize myself playing the game. Like I would feel in my emotions like it was real. I don't know why. I've always done that since I was a little kid. I had a good imagination, but I don't know what it was. Like I just tricked myself into feeling the emotion of it's real. And I would have this drive around in this little BMW and I had an office and I had an apartment in the city and I'm going to the beach and I'm doing all this stuff and I'm picking up friends from the airport, driving into my apartment. Like it sounds silly, but dude, I realized one day, like, holy shit, I have the same car that I had in the game. I have an apartment that's very similar. Not as crazy, but like in the city. I have an office in the city, right downtown.
Right.
Like
when you're in Boston, though.
No. After I moved out here, like looking back. Yeah, I'm jumping for. I'll go back in a second, but what I realized was all of this visualization of like living in Southern California. I ended up doing all of this, and all of this happened. But to go back to when I was in Boston, I was playing Grand Theft Auto and, kind of just in between, like something new is coming and just going, wait, I'm 23. The only thing tying me down here is my dog, which I can take anywhere. Don't have a girlfriend at the time. Don't have any, why am I here? And I looked at the weather for Los Angeles. It was like 78 degrees or something. And I'm like, the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
So like 2 weeks later, I was in San Diego and it just like one thing led to another. I didn't know anybody here. Didn't have any connections here. Turned out no job. I ended up taking a job kind of temporarily to get myself here and then ended up like starting my company. I just knew. And to back up even a little bit more before the sobriety thing, or maybe actually probably a little after, because I still worked for that company for quite, a couple months. I remember the day I became an entrepreneur. In this job, this sales job that I had, we sold credit card machines and rate packages business to business, right? So it's a hard thing to sell. And it's specifically a hard thing to sell to people in the Indian community, right? It's just a hard culture to penetrate. But once you get in with one, they refer all of their family and everything. But it's a really tight-knit community. But they have a lot of businesses, liquor stores, gas stations, stuff like that. So I'm in this liquor store talking to this guy, and I can just see that he's just like, I just know this guy's not going to sign up. He's interested. He wants to save money, but he doesn't trust me because I'm not in his community. Right. I get it. And I just looked at him, and I was broke, right, at this time. I was waiting on payroll. My phone was shut off because I'm behind on my phone. I think I owed $80 or something.
Oh, geez.
And I'm running low on gas. Yeah, I was making money, but I was blowing a lot of it. And like, also like when you're living in a big city, like things are expensive. Yeah. And I was living beyond my means, right? And I remember talking to this Indian guy and just going, because just as easily as signing them up, actually easier, I can call their existing company and negotiate, but we don't make money if we do that, right? But I'm like, hey, if I call your company and I can prove to you that I save you $100 a month, will you give me $100 cash? He was like, sure. So I called his company, said, hey, can you lower his rate from this to this? He's like, yeah, sure. Cool. Fax me confirmation.
Wow.
Hung up. They faxed me confirmation. He opened the till, lifted up the little change thing, pulled out a $100 bill, looked at it, gave it to me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this happened in like 30 minutes or less. I was like, oh. And again, formula, it clicked.
Yeah.
If I can do this once, I can do this twice. If I can do this twice, I can do it 100 times. I've taught people how to do sales. I can teach people how to do this. I don't know what I'm going to sell, but I'm going to go sell a lot of it. And that's what gave me the power to move to California. I didn't know what I was going to sell,
But you had that confidence that no matter what it was, you could do it.
Yeah, and I'm young. So like I'm going to go live below my means, which I didn't, but I'm going to go move to California. I'm going to go sleep on a floor. I'm going to go do whatever I have to do. And I figured it out. You know, it took me longer than I thought, but yeah. So when I end up in California, I had no plan. I had no connections. I just knew the sun was here, bro. And that's what I wanted. I'm like, if I'm going to build a business somewhere, why don't I do it somewhere where I'm happy? Like genuinely the sun makes me so happy.
It makes
bro.
a difference, man. I think that attributes to a lot of the attitude we get out here, the good moods that we see in San Diego and happiness in general.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and you don't know that if you're born and raised here. Like my girlfriend's born and raised here. I took her to Alaska during winter one time, and it's dark there a majority of the day. Like it's light for like a few hours during the dead of winter. And that's really weird to wake up at 11 o'clock in the morning and it's still being dark or just starting to kind of get light out.
Yeah.
That's weird. It throws your brain off.
For sure.
So when you get these much needed vitamins and, you know, it's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes sense. How you got to San Diego, amazing again, how you basically came here and started from ground, you know, stage zero.
Yeah.
With money, everything, just new place. I need a fresh start.
Yeah.
That's what was going through your head. I want to concentrate on the businesses you've built.
Sure.
Can you take us to the start of your entrepreneurial journey after you came to San Diego?
Yeah. So I moved here and I actually still maintained a relationship with this company, but I was now not an employee. I was a private contractor. So still was actually the same thing, just without the little salary that they had. So not much changed when I moved out here, right? I'm still going out. I'm talking to businesses, selling them the same stuff, making money doing that. So it was cool because I had a proven way to make income, at least a couple, you know, grand a month. But how credit card processing works, just to get you like an example, most of your money comes from your recurring like portfolio that you build. So each customer, you might get $200 or $300 up front in like a sign up fee, but you're splitting the profits with the big house company. So the company that I was working for.
Right.
And, you know, let's say the profit's $80 a month, you know, I get $40 a month off that person every month. So if I'm doing 15 deals a month, you know, it stacks up, but it takes a long time to build up a portfolio. Well, I had just before I left sold my portfolio back to the company. So they gave me a big check. I blew that check and you know how it goes. So I'm starting over, you know, so I'm trying to build this portfolio and I'm like, man, I got to make money faster. Right. So I had seen like Ty Lopez and guys like that on YouTube and, you know, tried the Amazon thing. I tried e-commerce. I tried all these different things. And
take my course.
Yeah, I mean, I did, right? Like I bought a bunch of courses and I was on YouTube trying to learn every single. I would go out in the field, talk to businesses, sell them on, you know, credit card processing, develop relationships, and then, you know, I'd be on my lunch on YouTube on my phone, or I'd be back at home on my computer watching YouTube and just learning. And I was addicted to learning because I saw people making money and I knew that it was possible. I knew there was probably some fake stuff coming. You know, I knew, you know, people are kind of selling snake oil, but I know that people are making money doing it. Yeah. And I'm going to figure it out.
Yep.
I know how to sell. I know people are buying it. Boom. So what I did when I first moved here was I started talking to people, you know, less about credit card processing and more about marketing because they wanted to talk about marketing. They didn't want to talk about, you know, nobody wants to talk about that. But marketing is sexy because you're bringing them customers. So I was like going into businesses and I had heard about Facebook ads. Didn't know much about them, but I walk into a business. Literally, my first customer in San Diego was a pizza place in North Park, Sicilian Thing Pizza. And this guy
still
Paul,
around?
He sold the business.
Okay.
It's still there on 30th, but he sold it in I think like 2018 or 2019, something like that. Cool guy. Ended up having a house in the next town over from where I was living in Boston. So yeah, it was just a weird, it was one of those signs where I'm like, oh man, this is meant to be.
Yeah.
And I told him, hey, look, I don't know how to run Facebook ads yet, but I'll learn. Yeah. If you pay me $500 a month, because I know you're paying your team to do marketing and they're not doing anything because they're flipping pizzas and doing stuff, you know, flipping pizzas. They're making pizzas and whatever. But so I'm like, dude, I'll figure it out for you. I'll run it. Pay me $500 a month. And I'll do this for you. He's like, sure. Oh shit. Okay. So now I got a customer paying me $500 a month.
Wow.
And now I'm going to other businesses and I'm just testing out other things to sell. So I'm like, hey, I'll teach you how to do this on your own. So I went to like this flower shop.
So you started off by offering your service. I'm going to do it for you. And then you started to say, let me teach you guys how to do it yourself.
Because people wanted to, right? Like they wanted to be able to teach either them or their staff to do this at the time. The landscape's really changed now, but everybody was so intrigued by Facebook ads or just internet marketing, and it was this point where
What year was this?
This was 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. So got sober in July of 2016, and then a couple months later was out here. But so Facebook was still like people knew of it, but like the Facebook ad agency was popping then. Like there was just such a big space, because when there's a new trend or a new thing like that, like let's just use TikTok, for example. Businesses hear about TikTok. They know there's early adopters or people that use it. And then there's a catch-up time before businesses actually use it. And when you can time it right, you can make a lot of money, because the supply and demand is just in a sweet spot for somebody who's ready to take on the demand and has the supply. So I didn't even know how to do most of this stuff, but I would be honest with people. Hey, I know a little bit about this and I'm learning every day. But I'm going to do some research specifically on your kind of business. I'm going to learn, and then we're going to test stuff together. And that's what I do. So I would go out, I would learn how to publish a Facebook ad and how to write ad copy and what pictures to use and how to do this and that and what works. And I was watching it work, and I was watching my customers be happy. And I just started selling more of that, increasing my pricing. And then this developed into niching down into real estate, and then going nationwide and not working with just local people, but now I'm knowing how to do Facebook ads for myself. Then we're spending $5,000 a month on ads. Then we're spending $20,000 a month, and we're getting a bunch of customers, and now we're making money. And it just evolved, one step to another. So
and this was all you at the time, or did you start getting people to help you?
Yeah. So my first employee was Donald Knapp. Actually, Carlos, my producer, it's his brother.
Okay.
So Donald was my first employee, and when I first brought him on, we had branded just real estate agents. We were just selling lead generation Facebook ads for real estate agents and nothing else, right? Makes it very easy to scale. And so when I first started, I was like, hey, I need somebody to come, because I'm doing sales, I'm doing customer support, I'm doing the fulfillment, I'm doing everything. So Don, you come in, you do the customer support, and you build out the ads.
Okay.
I'll go sell. So now that freed up my time. Here we come again with the formula. I'm following a formula that works. I am firing myself from as many tasks as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Right? So
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Why did you pick those jobs specifically, customer service or success?
Yeah.
And making the ads as the first thing to delegate?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really easy to teach somebody to do that. And
that's it. Okay.
And I actually tried to have him do sales, right? But as you know, just think about this, right? This kid came from working at Starbucks, had no other work experience really, right? So he comes from working Starbucks to his first job. So now Don's seeing all of the same things that I saw, and he's getting the same inspiration. So, again, I'm watching that formula. I'm seeing what's working. And I try to put Don in a sales role. And then I realize it's much better for him to learn, because he doesn't really know what he's selling yet. The best way for him to learn is to do all this stuff. But then also I'm really good at selling, and I know all the stuff. I'm doing everything. So I am going to go sell while he does all the work. And then if something happens, I can be there. But guess what? He figured it out. I put him in a spot where he would ask me for help, and I would say, figure it out, which sucks. And people don't like hearing that, but it gives them the tool to go out and be self-reliant and not need me as much. Hey, go find the answer on your own. It's a muscle to build.
A lot of power within that.
Yeah. And look, now fast forward, Donald owns his own company upstairs doing the same thing in the solar niche, and he's making a bunch of money. Wow. He has 7 employees, 6 employees, something like that. So dude. So and he followed the formula that we were doing, But so anyway, so I hired Don. Don started doing all of that stuff. And then when Don learned enough and got better at kind of sales and got a little more confident in himself and talking to people, because he had been doing the onboardings with the customers too and all of that stuff. So then I brought somebody else in, one of our other friends, to then do what he was doing. And then now him and I are selling. And then I bring on another person in that support and, back end role. And then now we bring on another salesperson. So now it's me, him, and another person all selling. So now we're growing. Yeah. And then, I end up selling 50% of my company to another agency who then came on, and we shifted our offer. And now we're, we have 40 something people in the company, it's, it's just
amazing, man.
It's crazy because it happened one step at a time.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like that much progress, because you're only making progress daily, or minute my minute. But when you look at the big picture, like when you really like, I look at, man, less than 10 years ago, bro, if you were to tell me 10 years ago that I'd be where I am now, I would probably just by default just die. I think my brain would just shut down. You know, it's just like sometimes I do these, this like visualization where I pretend like, younger me is sitting in the passenger seat, like inner child healing. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. I don't know why I do it, but sometimes I just like picture like, what if younger me was here, sitting here? Yeah. Like, maybe it's a gratitude exercise. I don't know. But like, I just think if like 20-year-old me or 21-year-old me was sitting here in the truck while I'm driving around, going from my house to, getting on a jet ski and I don't know, dude, like just going to my office, just seeing the life that I have. It is so unbelievably, I am so grateful, bro. Like it's yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's sick, man. What was the name of this company throughout that early growth stage?
So Lazy Cow Media is the parent company that I first started. It was kind of the brand. But then it didn't really make sense because we rebranded to cheapassleads.com and then that rebranded into localrealestateleads.net. So it was just kind of the names kind of confusing and, I'm good at coming up with branding and names, but we needed something and we're, our goal is to sell this company to private equity or,
Sure.
Another bigger company or something. And having the name Cheap Ass Leads kind of rubs people the wrong way in terms of like big money and, or, I don't know. So that's why we're kind of rebranding and making it a little more professional, I guess, which I hate, but we're trying to sell it and walk away and,
For sure. So localrealestateleads.net is what it is today.
Yep. .com wasn't available, but
That happens. Okay. And so were there other arms of the business? Wasn't there a staffing arm under Lazy Cow?
Yeah. So I still have a staffing company called Lazy Cow Staffing. And again, it's like my accountant handles the structures of all of this, but it's a company owned by the parent company, which is Lazy Cow Media. So long story, but it's like a holding company now. But but Lazy Cow Staffing is a virtual assistant staffing company. So we were hiring virtual assistants. Yeah, I mean, you were talking about Tim Ferriss, Tim Ferriss wrote the 4-Hour Workweek, right? Yeah. And he talks about virtual assistants in that book. Well, virtual assistants, if you don't know, are somebody who works remote in a country like Mexico, Philippines, Colombia, somewhere where the cost of living is low, but you can give them an opportunity to not only pay them extremely well compared to their competitors and give somebody an opportunity to have an amazing life, but also work from home, work remote. And it's awesome, right? Because it's the best of both worlds. And we have a bunch of virtual assistants from the Philippines. And we hired so many people and our customers would talk to because that's who does a lot of our customer support. Our customers would talk to our virtual assistants and be like, hey, these guys are really good. I didn't even know they're in the Philippines. They have great English. They're, it's awesome. Can you help me get a virtual assistant? So I started doing this for customers just to help. And then I'm like, wait, we have the SOPs built out for this whole process. I can just build a company out of this. So we built that way we can charge people when they ask, because it started kind of becoming another company, that we weren't getting paid to do. So, so that's what we do. It's kind of a side hustle. I don't really promote it too much. It's more there for when the conversation comes up.
Got it.
With customers or, whatever.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So the main focus has been this, basically it's marketing consulting, would you call it, of getting these leads in the real estate space? Yeah,
marketing service. So we sell a CRM software. That's our main thing. Okay. We have our own custom build of Go High Level software, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have thousands and thousands of real estate agents on Go High Level, and then we have different levels of tiers that they can sign up for. Oh, wow. So it starts at $97 a month, then it goes up to a couple $100 a month.
Okay. So how do you make a custom built version of that?
You just get a licensing deal with them. You have a reselling package, and
it's like an OEM type thing.
What do you mean?
So okay. So it's basically like embedded. They give you the base layer of, and then you have customization capabilities to resell.
I forget you're a software guy. So yeah. So it's white label, right?
Yes,
so it's a blank canvas CRM that has all these incredible capabilities, like Calendly. Right. So you don't need Calendly because it does that, right? You don't need Zapier because all your shit's plugged in through direct API. You don't need, I don't want to get too deep into like the software side, and I'm not a tech guy, right? Like I'm not I'm a sales guy and that found a good product to resell, and that's why.
Got it.
Then it allows us to custom build all of these email campaigns, text campaigns, automations, and everything. So it's truly our custom platform built on high-level software. Most people that resell high-level say, oh yeah, we custom made the software. We don't care. We tell them it's high-level. We're not gonna lie to you about who built the software. We have our own custom build of it. That's what it is. You can buy it through us for $97 a month with our cool stuff, or you get a blank one from them for the same price. You know, that's it.
So what does an engagement look like with a new client? What does the first conversation look like? What are you interested in learning? And then how do you get them started? Yeah.
So, I mean, it really just comes down to, do you want leads, right? If you're a real estate agent and you want leads, you get 8 to 10 leads and you only pay us when you close on that deal. Now you have to get the software because we have to put the leads somewhere, right? So we used to sell just lead generation. But then I'm like, man, people don't want to pay this big price for that, but they will pay for software if we take on some of the risk. So we say, hey, if you want 8 to 10 leads, we'll cover the cost. We'll go get the leads. You pay us if you close the deal from that, a flat rate, $497. That's it. The only risk is you get the CRM, and there's really no risk because you get the CRM.
Yeah.
You know, and it's month to month. We ask for a 30-day notice, so it's very like no long-term contracts, nothing like that. Now, when they come into onboarding, we give them other options like, hey, if you want more than 8 to 10 leads, if you want 50 leads or 100 leads, we have these different packs. And then we end up working out pricing with them and going from there. So it starts out at $97, very low risk, but like any other business, there's going to be people that want more and more and more. So we just have options for the people that want to take on more and assume more risk, but pay more upfront, but get more, you know.
I see.
So.
Cool. Okay. What has been the biggest challenge you've experienced since becoming an entrepreneur? It could be general or specific.
There's so many challenges being an entrepreneur is just problem solving, right? In the lead generation space, it is quality, right? Like quality is a very wishy-washy thing for people because I can give you, like, the problem with a lot of real estate agents, there's a reason why most of them are out of the business in a few years, right? They just don't do that. They're not business people. They think they see $1 million listing and think, oh, I'm just going to go look pretty by a pool and make $1 million. Not how it fucking works. It takes
hustle.
dedication, you know? So we give people leads and they can be the hottest lead in the world. It can be somebody saying, hey, I have a $2 million house. I'm very interested in selling it, but I need to buy something else, whatever. Whatever the context is, people will still fumble that lead and then say that we gave them poor quality leads. Yeah. Sometimes the leads are poor quality. When that's the case, we'll work with them.
Sure.
But it's tough because a lot of people, you know, I just think that there's an education thing. A lot of people don't understand what it really takes, and you know, so
to close sales.
So you talk to anybody in the lead generation space, any seasoned veteran in real estate or any other thing, they'll say their biggest problem, especially with new agents, is they don't want to do the work.
Right.
That's what I would say.
Interesting.
Or they don't know what the work is and they don't know who to trust because everybody's selling them something.
That's a big part of it.
And here's another thing specific to real estate. If you're a new real estate agent and you go to a brokerage, it's like in a traditional sales world, what happens? They give you crazy amounts of training. They make sure you're good. You have a sales manager. You have a system to go out and be successful.
Right.
And if you're not successful, it's usually you're just not the right person for the job.
Sure.
But in real estate, I've never seen people recruit people so hard to come onto their brokerage and then give them no fucking tools. And some agents and brokerages do really, really good with it. But most of the time, you know, Keller Williams will say, not Keller Williams, you know, but just using that as an example, they will recruit people really heavy. They'll give them a mentor and then they'll just kind of disappear because they know that they're going to make money off of them selling 2 people or 3 people that they know. And that's it. If they do that 100 times, the brokerage is making money, you know? So we do a lot of training and a lot of people are like, oh man, like my brokerage has never taught me any of this stuff, how to follow up with leads. They didn't even tell me that. It's crazy.
So that's a part of it. So you are offering the training service. So that's kind of the consulting piece in addition to the giving the leads and providing the software.
Yeah. So when they go through onboarding, they get on the onboarding call, we do like a full training on like giving them some basic stuff. And then we give them a follow-up course that kind of teaches them some stuff. And then obviously they can hit up our support with any kind of questions and we have documents and resources for them. So,
got it.
Yeah. But to answer your question, you said, sorry, I kind of got off track, but you asked me what the biggest struggles are with being an entrepreneur. I mean, look, it's entrepreneurship is not a game for people that don't like struggle. You know, it's a game for people that fight with their back against the wall.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they've survived their whole life. I think that's what makes the best entrepreneur. A salesperson, if you can sell, you can probably be an entrepreneur, but to what level, right? You know, like for me, this podcast studio that I just opened up is a new venture.
Yep.
I dumped a lot of money into this and took on a lot of risk. It will work, but I'm scared right now in a good way. It's like a healthy stress, right? Where like my company's been running itself. I don't really work a ton because all the systems are in place. I don't have to really do much. I check in and I do stuff here and there, but I could go take 2 months off and it would grow without me being there. But that puts you in kind of a place where like, okay, all the bills are paid. You know, I've got all this time now and I can work, I can still grow on that, but I'm not passionate about it anymore. You know, it kind of puts you in a weird spot where you kind of get complacent and that's a deadly place to be. So I needed something to put the fire under my ass again. And I've had the podcast for a while. So we thought, hey, you know, the podcast isn't generating much money yet. You know, I'm spending a lot of money on it. I've got a full-time, you know, staff on it. And why don't we just, you know, I know a lot of people in San Diego, open up a podcast studio and let people come rent it out and create a community and a place for creators to come shoot their content, shoot talking head stuff, learn all of that, you know.
And that's called the Content Factory.
Yep, that's where we are right now.
Where we are now.
The Content Factory San Diego.
And so people who want to record a podcast can come rent this out and they have a full production.
Yeah, so
as a part of it.
Yeah, so it's all white glove. You know, you don't do anything. So you roll in, we handle everything. We have a full-time engineer on, present at all times. You show up, shoot your content, you roll out with the footage similar to what you're doing today. Yeah, you can shoot a podcast, but also you can shoot any kind of talking head. We have multiple different sets. We're coming up with green screen backgrounds, all sorts of stuff. So
very cool.
For anybody who's a business owner or trying to create content, we want them to want to come here. And when you're here, we don't want you to leave. We want people to not want to leave. We want them to feel like, man, I don't want to leave. This is fun. It's a nice place to be. So.
Oh yeah, man. It's a great room. We're right downtown in the Gas Lamp as well.
Yep. With parking, which is crazy.
With parking. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. This is awesome, man. So yeah, no, this is an exciting business. I agree with you. It will work, like you say, but I can relate to the being scared part. You know, you want to see more traction sooner. That's always the thing. And I'm, you know, experiencing that. I just recently started a business as well called Legacy Capsule.
Congrats, dude.
Thank you. But yeah, it's definitely a phase of going through where you do need to fight with your back against the wall. Even if people think it's a great idea, like this is a great idea. Yeah. Business still needs to be done. Right. So yeah.
I really think, I really think that risk is a thing that people dance around and they're not comfortable with, when really like risk is, again, like your perception is everything, but risk is like not that risky. Like when you think about it, like when I moved out here to San Diego, things could have gone horrible. You know, my life, things could have gone terrible and I could have lost all my money, but guess what? I can always resort back to where I was. And when I moved to Boston, I could have always resorted back to where I was before that. Like once you're at a certain level and you know how to get there, you can get back there very easily. So when you build a business and you learn how to make it work through trial and error, nobody can take those learning skills and tools that you have. You know what I mean? Like you can always go back and build something, or I don't know. I just feel like people should be more comfortable with risk, especially when they're young, because what do you have to lose? And if you're miserable in your life and you don't like where you are, going out and failing is not going to be much worse than where you're at. And you're just going to end up in the same spot. So people live their lives in this uncomfortable, hating their lives, dreading every single day, but it's comfortable and they know it.
Right.
They're comfortable with being uncomfortable, but they're not going out and being uncomfortable and doing the things to go get the life they want, you know?
Yep. Huge believer in that.
Yeah. So when we talked, before today, when we talked on the phone, I was super pumped when you were telling me you started a company, and it's just like, it's so easy nowadays to start a business too. It's not like, as risky as it was in the 90s and early 2000s,
Yeah. Well, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that philosophy in general of being put in a hard place so that you're forced to react in a bigger way and make shit happen. And just on this topic, I want to go back to your podcast. I do want to understand what motivated you to start that. When did you start it and why?
Carlos, like what, 2 years ago now? Yeah. Getting close to 2 years.
2022. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Carlos was working for me full time at my company doing like a customer support role.
Okay.
And it was pretty, quick that he hated that. And Carlos is a good person. We hired him for a reason, but it was my fault. It wasn't the job for him.
Okay.
So I kind of went to him and was like, dude, do you want to work in kind of a video capacity role? We can find something, when we have a good employee and we're already investing time and money and they're investing their time into us, like we want to make sure that we're getting what we can out of that and we're giving them an opportunity. So, whether it's Carlos or we have a bunch of employees that we've moved around and created roles for because they're good talent and good talent is rare. So I moved Carlos into a video role. I knew that he had a little bit of a history in that. Him and his brother blew up a YouTube channel a long time ago, like 30,000 subscribers.
Oh, nice.
So I'm like, hey, he knew with what he knew then, like he can learn more.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's just create a podcast. I know that I need to do something like that. Podcasting is kind of the next media form, and a personal brand is very important, right?
Yeah.
Like the reason why Khloe Kardashian, she the billionaire? Kylie Jenner. Yeah, sorry. Who's is Khloe one of them? I don't know.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
She's the ugly one, right? Okay, never mind. But the reason why Kylie Jenner is a billionaire is because she has a personal brand. The reason why Alex Hormozy is blowing up is because of his personal brand. Like if people know your name, you can use Donald Trump as an example. Like whether you like the guy or not, he has a personal brand. And even with all the people that hate it on him, it still got him to be the presidency because who was everybody talking about? It was him, right?
Right.
And that can be the case with anybody, But yeah, I mean, a personal brand is, I think, an asset,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that makes sense. You started it for all the pretty much normal reasons you would find when someone's starting a podcast too.
Well, also it helps hit that limit of empowering or help hitting my goal of empowering over 1 billion people.
There you go. Yeah.
Like one day this podcast will be huge and it will, and I'm already empowering people and, it's crazy. I wish you could see like an actual number, like have a little ticker that shows you how many people you've impacted.
Yeah.
Maybe one day with AI. You never know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're pretty much at the same spot as far as episodes, right?
Yeah.
We're right around episode 60.
Yeah. That's crazy. I think this is episode 60 oh yeah, this isn't mine. So this is your podcast. Okay. So we're on 59. So the next one will be 60. That's why I was confused earlier. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. That's pretty funny how we're same spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, well, I mean, it looks like that podcast journey has been fun. You've had some pretty cool guests on there, and it's just an extension of building that personal brand. And I mean, that's kind of my effort too. And I know, I kind of did it backwards, right? I started the podcast and then I started a business, right? My podcast was about entrepreneurship. I was on someone else's podcast recently where I talked about feeling this imposter syndrome by doing it in the reverse order, right? Like I'm not an entrepreneur, or I don't see myself as one. But I
having a podcast, you're an entrepreneur.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. And I've learned that. And I've learned a ton through that. And certainly I've learned the most by talking to people like you on my podcast. Yeah. Right. And that's been the biggest impact. And not just the conversations on the show, but off camera. Right. And just picking people's brains and putting it all together because there are entrepreneurs of all different types on this show. Yeah. So I just felt like, okay, this business that I've started, whether it is going to be successful or not, I really want that firsthand experience of building this as like a layer underneath my podcast so that it can fuel maybe the direction of this podcast to give myself a little bit more validity. And when I speak, when I share stuff, instead of only making it about the guests across me, like I'm trying to mix in some more solo content so that this show can be, people will want to follow the show instead of just showing up for a guest that they know.
Yes. Right. And that's community. Right. And, I mean, the cool thing about a podcast is whether it's successful or not, like there's multiple different facets of success through podcasting. So for example, we probably never would have connected on this level if we didn't both have podcasts. Right. Like we met through, I think, Eric Uresk or somebody.
I think I just reached out to you.
Yeah. But you probably saw one of my clips through Eric or somebody that we know. I think somehow you saw me. So my personal brand, my podcast, got you, and then now here we are, right? And we'll make money together or something. Like I refer you to somebody that helps you click something off.
Sure.
It's just you're opening up probabilities that never would have been there.
Absolutely.
And you're getting in the door with people that you never would have sat down with. Like I've sat down with people who, like David Meltzer was on my podcast.
Right.
Billy from Fire Festival, Billy McFarland.
That's cool.
Yeah. One of the world's biggest drug kingpins, Freeway Rick Ross, is on the podcast. Who else, Carlos? Who are some of the bigger guests? Taylor Kavanaugh, Navy SEAL that went to the French Foreign Legion, was on. My buddy Perry is a Navy SEAL. Kevin Hines, the guy that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived. Dude, so many incredible guests, coming up on 60 that I never would have sat down with. Yeah. So amazing.
It is. It's an amazing experience, man. And I relate to that experience so far, certainly.
Yeah.
Man, this is a fun question I like to ask towards the end, which is if you have a piece of advice, or I would call it an entrepreneur life hack that would go maybe against the mainstream belief from your experience and all these businesses you've worked on so far, do you have something you could share with the audience?
Yeah, for sure. Like if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, I think self-awareness is really, really, really important, because a lot of people go and they want to be entrepreneurs and they do it for the wrong reason, right? Like they do it for the money, or they do it for, most people are going to be much happier and make more money being a number 20 guy at a smaller company that does really well than being a number 1 guy at a company that does nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not trying to scare people away from it, but entrepreneurship is not for everybody. There's a reason why successful entrepreneurs are very few. And I think if you're meant for it, you should chase it and you'll know. And I think you should try it, but I think that you should be, understand how comfortable you are with risk, but also identifying what risk really is. Like, can you go back to the same level? Try it. If this is going to fuck your life up and you got 4 kids and you're going to lose your house, maybe you have a different level of risk, but if you got nothing to lose, why are you sitting and waiting? So my biggest advice is just look inside, try to find out because we're all chasing something. What are we covering up? What are we trying to fill? What void are we trying to fill? Was your dad not there as a kid? Was your mom mean to you? Did you get bullied? Whatever it was, right? Everybody's got that thing that impacts the rest of their life. And I think when you identify what that thing is, then that makes it really easy to figure out the rest of your life and what you should do, like how to fulfill that. Because we're all just seeking fulfillment, right?
Sure.
So yeah, that's my biggest piece. But if you got nothing to lose and you know that you will be good at it, go do it. And if you're thinking about starting a business, before you do it, get a sales job. I could not have done this. Like having the sales job and having that mentorship for years before set me up for success like crazy. It just would not have happened without that. Would not have happened. Maybe, but definitely not as fast as it did.
Yeah, no, that's been a common piece of advice I've heard throughout my career, throughout the years, is just having that base layer experience of sales. Yeah. It's so valuable no matter where you go in life, because life is sales. Yeah. Right. And it certainly contributed to why I got into sales originally. And I had a 10-year career in software sales.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing, bro. Yeah. And look, now you go sell your own software. You got a fire under your ass because now you have more risk, but you'll probably make more money because there's a lot less cost and you're taking on all the risk. That's another thing is when employees look at what their bosses make and they're like, what the hell? I do all the work and he doesn't, he takes all the money. Well, yeah, he took on all the risk. The reason you have a job is because they built this thing, and I used to think that all the time. And then, some people who don't have that perspective don't know that, so,
people need to learn more about what capitalism is.
Yeah. And I used to hate capitalism. Now I love it. So anyways.
A true transformation.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Nice. Crazy.
Well, man, Kevin, what a awesome story. Yeah. And I'm definitely eager to continue learning about what you're working on and how things go for you. I love everything you've built so far. It's inspiring to me, especially with where I'm at. It's one thing that we're the same place with the podcast, but certainly with me trying to build a business outside of the podcast. Yeah. And everything you've accomplished in other areas.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to help.
Business.
Let me know if you ever have any questions. And can I add one thing?
Sure.
If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever, do me a favor. This dude is underrated. Seriously, this podcast was really, really good. The questions you ask, amazing. So if you're listening to this at this point, you've listened to pretty much the whole thing, leave this dude a review. Wherever you're listening to this, a review on Apple or Spotify. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe, share it with somebody. Like, this guy has a really good podcast, but the community is really what moves it forward. So yeah, like that's, yeah. Anyways.
Thank you, man.
Amazing episode, man. Yeah.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. And, of course, guys, check out Think Bigger with Kevin Pheley too. He's got a great podcast, and maybe I'll be on his show sometime soon.
Yes.
Yeah. But dude, is there anyone in your network who you would recommend I have on the show?
Dan Fulkerson.
Okay.
Yeah. Without hesitation. Do you know Dan yet?
I don't think so.
All right.
No.
I got some people for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Cool,
man. Well, Kevin, so good to talk to you and connect with you, man. And yeah, I'm excited to see your continued progress and growth.
Thanks, man. You too, dude. And we'll have you in the Content Factory again.
I love it, dude. Yeah, This place is awesome. I'll be back.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Nichols and Dimes Show. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube and follow my Instagram page at Nichols and Dimes. The podcast Instagram page is at Nichols and Dimes Show. And please like any of the videos you come across on either platform and leave a comment, leave feedback. It helps me to improve and innovate and to continue to scale and bring more interesting guests to the Nichols and Dimes Show. Thank you all for the support, and we'll see you next time.